they find the same people are involved in New York, Seattle, and all over the
They just travel around.
And right, you can identify these people. They're the ones that come in and organize it. They've got these speakers, and they've got the printed signs and all this stuff. That's an elaborate process of having created, not only designing them, having them printed, and having them distributed. It makes an organization. That's exactly what you're doing. It's nothing spontaneous about it.
And I guess a lot of that money comes from George Soros.
Exactly.
To make all those signs and everything. We had them here in Louisville. We really need to work together to overcome all of this corruption that's now breaking out in the last couple of days. So we need this more than ever. This is the Jesus film, and you can get your free copy by calling us right now at 895-5025. There's a real person there to answer the phone. If there's anybody that wants to call into the program today, its number is 571-0970. If you have some comments about this breaking news in the last couple of days, we would like to hear from you. Give us a call right now. The call for the number here at the station is 571-0970. Well, this is amazing. Hannity had it all.
Exactly. He's doing it, laying it out very methodically with deliberation. He's outlining it so the general public can understand what's going on. Another thing that just came out that the media has not covered and never talked is the New Mexico location of that terrorist camp where they were training children to have shootings in their schools. And they found the body of one child buried there. And the fact that they don't talk about the 5 adults that are there, the training process and all that, in this hidden sanctuary that they built in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. The fact that the man who is in charge of all this is the son of the blind sheikh in New York that had the bombing of the trade tower. All of that is not being reported by the general media. Fox is the one that's been reporting that.
That's right. Now, they say that there's a dozen or 24 Muslim terrorist training camps spread all over the United States.
Exactly. There are, and they're growing, and they're being more successful. They're being financed and everything. But the political correctness group, phobias that are all connected with anybody that criticizes any group, any nationality, or anything else.
All you have to do is look at England, and you can see how the Muslim takeover of a country is not a good thing, with all of the child raping and all of that. It's unbelievable.
That is their goal and always has been, to have a worldwide caliphate control. It's growing, and again, it's being ignored by the media and others, and it's a serious, serious problem.
I can't believe that the media that we used to watch and get our news has been bought out.
Well, this is the thing that started a long time ago when the Students for a Democratic Society were the ones that had all the protests and the weathermen and their murders and bombings and all of those things going on, and it wasn't working. So they decided, they had a national meeting. They brought in all of their leaders from the various universities around the country and said, look,
these are communists.
These
progressives.
Yeah, progressives. And then they said, wait a minute, this is not working. Well, we're going to have to change our strategy. We're going to have to work from the inside. We're going to have to infiltrate the education systems, the judiciary, the lawyers, and all of these things, and particularly the media. And so media became a major effort on the part of those changing their degrees to where they become communications experts and join the media. So they're the ones that have moved up into leadership since the 60s, and all of that thing has been going on behind the scenes that the people have been uninformed about.
It's truly amazing how they have taken over what they call mainstream media.
Exactly. Between the academic community, the media, and Hollywood, there's very little true information that's available out there except from places like Fox and others. And Judicial Watch has done an excellent job filing lawsuits against each one of these things and have been successful in a lot of the court cases. They're part of the exposure of all of these things.
I think it's just a matter of time, and all of this corruption has come out. Who did it? Who paid for it? All that. It's all coming out now.
And when you look at the thing going on in Venezuela, the fact that socialism does not work, it's totally crazy, destroys the country. The people, the children are starving to death. There's no medicine and anything. The elderly are all suffering. All of those things. And you've got people like Michael Moore, who thinks it's the most wonderful place in the world.
Unbelievable.
And then there's Rosie O'Donnell and people like that coming out of Hollywood. It's the most absurd.
Like you say, socialism has failed every time it's been tried, and it's continuing to fail. And yet the universities are teaching children, the young people, oh, try socialism just one more time, one more time.
This time we're going to get it right.
And it's never worked. Here's Venezuela, look down in Cuba. They're still using old cars and everything. So if you disagree with the government, then they'll put you in jail immediately.
Goes again back to the Bible when it talks about anarchists. Biblical linkages. To start anew, first destroy the old. And this is exactly their whole objective and has been from the very beginning.
Us have Jesus make a comeback. Here's the Jesus film, the greatest movie ever sold, the greatest story ever told. They're free. They're in about 8 different languages. And you can get one. You get one for everyone in your church and everyone in your neighborhood. And just call us right now at 895-5025. There's a real person there to answer the phone right now. This is a tremendous thing. We need to be involved in the cultural war and what's going on. We've got the answer. Socialism is not the answer. God is the answer. And with God's help, we can turn this whole thing around.
That's what our founding fathers said, one nation under God. And every church ought to be involved. Every Sunday school class ought to be teaching the children information that they need about the founding of this country and every principle it stands for.
Okay, Ed, I think we're about out of time again, but wonderful to have you. Just call the number for your DVD and more information. It's 895-5025. It's a tremendous time to be alive. We'll get you your DVD, and we'll get enough for everybody to have a DVD. God bless you, and tune in again next week. Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088. We can see you tomorrow. Hello, this is Frank Simon with the rest of the news, and our special guest today is Matt Singleton, who is right here.
Hey, everybody.
And on the phone line calling in, we have Jerry Newcomb with the D. James Kennedy Ministry. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Jerry, I got some information from you about this censorship that's going on. But first of all, I got your information here that you have written a whole lot of books. I didn't realize that you had written so many. How many have you written altogether?
Well, written or co-written 30 books, 30 including
books.
several
Did you know
with
that?
D. James Kennedy.
And here's one, The Unstoppable Jesus Christ.
That's one of my most recent books. It's actually a compilation of columns, but showing that, frankly, Christianity is on the right side of history, even though you wouldn't know it today, the way the liberal media is. You'd think that we were losing.
Oh, wow.
And certainly there's setbacks, but the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. That verse I just quoted, Psalm 110, verse 1, is the most quoted verse from the Old Testament in the New Testament, in whole or in part. And what it shows is that God the Father has put God the Son at his right hand, and we are waiting as history is basically putting the enemies of Christ under his feet. But there are a lot of enemies, and they keep arising. And it seems to us that one of the most recent enemies are those within big tech that try to censor Christian and conservative content. It's an amazing event.
I like these examples that you spoke about in your program that was on YouTube. So the name of the program is Censoring the Truth. Then it's : Facebook, Google, and the New Media Gatekeepers. That was dated July 15th of 2018. So I was very impressed with that. It starts off with Lila Rose of the Life Action Group had some of her materials censored by Silicon Valley or by the internet. Is that right?
Yes, and she is a shining example of how to use the internet in a positive way. Before a lot of the censorship began in earnest, she was actually able to get her message out to literally 85 million. I don't want to say 85 million people, because when you talk about 85 million views, obviously some of the same people can see the same thing more than once, and therefore they would skew that statistic. But she had 85 million views, a 4-part series, the subject of how abortions actually take place, what actually happens in an abortion. So here's this wonderful Christian pro-life lady getting the truth out about what actually happens in an abortion, trying to prevent other people from making the mistake of having an abortion. There's already many women who've had abortions and they regret it. Many people just don't know about it. Abortion is just a word, but every abortion stops a beating heart. But Lila Rose is a great example of ways in which this new social media revolution can really be useful to get the word out. Now what's happening is Facebook and YouTube and Google, they're really starting to clamp down that much more on conservative and Christian content in the internet. So that's why Dr. Frank Wright, our president, thought it was very important that we address this issue. We started out the gate with Lila Rose as kind of a positive example, and yet even she mentions how her attorneys have had to contact Google and YouTube and Facebook and so forth about some of the harassment they've experienced.
Kind of funny, because we used to be worried back in the 20th century about the Soviet Union with the Iron Curtain. And now with the internet, we have the electric curtain.
It's interesting. Never thought of it that way.
I've kind of lived this out personally. I got involved with political activism as early as 2004 and have been on the internet in many different facilities. I discovered it years later, but I used to be working as an activist, and I was working with Rand Paul and his campaign. There was a reporter from LA. We live out in Louisville, Kentucky, and he wrote this report when Rand Paul was running in 2009, and it was called The Dubious Characters with Whom Rand Paul May Keep. It had all these conservative groups, including myself personally, also Dr. Simon's group, the American Family Association, and other groups that we've worked with and stuff. Then I look back into it, and where is he getting that list? The Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh, brother.
And I think you brought them up in your video on YouTube.
Yes, we did. As a matter of fact, one of the points we made is that some of these gatekeepers of big tech with the digital media and so forth, they will use the Southern Poverty Law Center as a source of supposedly credible information on who is a hater and who is not. And as you all well know, the Southern Poverty Law Center has been discredited by painting with too broad a brush, saying this group is a hate group, that group is a hate group. I work for a hate group, supposedly. It's a hate group as labeled by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I guarantee we don't hate anybody. In fact, we love so much we want to speak the truth in love, and we attempt to do that. But the Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled D. James Kennedy Ministries as a hate group, as they did the Family Research Council. And as we all know, about 6 years ago from this very week, an unhinged person on the left went in, was going to attack the FRC. He was motivated by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and by the grace of God, the building manager managed to stop him, took a bullet himself in his arm. In that process, it had to have multiple operations, but that could have been a bloodbath, and it was all inspired by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which accuses us of hate, and yet they're the ones that, in a sense, promote real hate kind of thing. By the way, they did not remove Tony Perkins and the Family Research Council after that incident from their map of hate. The last I checked, he's still there. It's unconscionable.
Cool Ridge, D. James Kennedy Ministries. Now, y'all get into theology times. I love to get into theology. I'm a Baptist. Y'all come from a Presbyterian background. It's easy in the world of theology to critique each other and stuff like that. But honestly, I've never seen your program put anything out, even if getting into theology and stuff like that. I've never seen y'all have anything that really offended me. Everything was fundamental and focused on just the basics of the faith and apologetics and evangelism. It's always been very straightforward and very endearing to just what general Christians believe, done a little bit more sophisticated and nuanced, but everything has not been in any type of offensive manner other than the fact that we are standing up for the truth instead of bending down.
And what's happening with this gatekeepers issue is that more and more people, Christian people, are expressing the situation where they're getting censored for their particular messages. So, for example, in our video, our special Censoring the Truth, we have this story about this wonderful man that's a former homosexual, David Kyle Foster. This guy used to be in B movies back in the late 1970s, sometimes even as the lead. He was a Hollywood wannabe and was actually getting parts in different movies. He was even in a short scene in the movie Halloween. But anyway, he was also a male prostitute on the side and was fully immersed in the gay lifestyle. Then he became a Christian miraculously. Fast forward to today, all these years later, he's been making these wonderful, compassionate videos that are testimonies of people who are broken sexually, including from homosexuality, including from transgenderism, including from adultery or addiction to pornography, whatever. Just people who are sexually broken who have found freedom through Jesus Christ. He was starting to be censored now by the gatekeepers at big tech. They were like, your videos are hateful. One person complains, got to remove those videos. Wow. How often do we have to suffer in the mainstream media with all kinds of stuff that offends us, but if somebody complains, you got to take that down. That's supposedly hateful. I think this word hate is the most overused word in the country right now, and I think groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center and then Google and YouTube and Facebook or whatever following its lead, the Southern Poverty Law Center's lead in over-defining hate, it is a bad situation for America. In fact, even our founding document, that would be the Declaration of Independence, was taken down by Facebook during July 4th at that time because, they said it was flagged for having hate speech within it.
The true prey of the predators that we talk about when it talks about the big companies and Google and the censorship, the true prey is not the people who oppose the left. It's the people who follow the left. And when you look at the things like when we talk about the homosexuals and stuff, I looked at a Center for Disease Control article, just came out in 2017, and the statistics are the same when it comes to the HIV rate. We're talking about 66% of the infections are in the homosexual community. And yet also the homosexual community is definitely growing by leaps and bounds. And they're not talking about that subject. All of a sudden you hear those STDs and all that kind of stuff. That's out of the conversation now. Well, who's the victim of that? It's the people who follow the policies of the left.
I'll give you a quick example. This is so politically incorrect, but it's true that you look at some of these priest scandals that are breaking from time to time, and there was one that just broke this very week within a problem within the Catholic Church. But most of that, if you just dig between the surface, a little bit below the surface, you're seeing a homosexual problem. There was a time in the 1970s in some of the seminaries in the Catholic Church where some homosexuals managed to, many of them, got a stranglehold on who would be accepted and who wouldn't be. And so a lot of straight-laced, sincere men were turned away from the priesthood in favor of those who had homosexual tendencies or whatever, and you ended up with this scandal all these years later. Most of those victims are little boys or post-puberty. I'm not saying all, but most of them. This is a homosexual scandal, but that is so politically incorrect that you virtually can't say it, but facts are facts. So it's important that we recognize that. You're right. There's a lot of victims among the people themselves. So in the example of David Kyle Foster, this guy is speaking the truth in love and doing it in a very compassionate way. So what a tragedy to have his testimonies for Christ censored by the gatekeepers of big tech.
Let me ask you a question. I was particularly interested in the Stephen Andrew story.
Yes.
Pastor Stephen Andrew. Is he actually going to start a Christian Facebook type page?
He is working at it. He would welcome little donations or whatever. Seriously, $10 if every Christian listening give him $10 for his USA.life, $10 for his 1776.free. The USA.life is hoping to be kind of a Christian counterpart to Facebook, if you would. And then the 1776.free is hoping to be a counterpart to Google. Well, we went and interviewed him because he is a high-tech engineer, and he's more than just an engineer. He's an entrepreneur. He's actually worked with Fortune 500 tech companies and so forth as a Silicon Valley engineer, only he's a Christian, and he is working on these alternatives because he himself has been censored. He saw a 98% censorship by Facebook of his content after Donald Trump became president. By the way, a lot of these problems really have arisen since the election of Donald Trump. I think what happened was some of the Silicon Valley leaders recognized that they got blamed for allowing the free flow of ideas and so forth. And then Donald Trump got elected, and it blew everybody's expectations out of the water. I forgot what the statistic was. It was some political pundit that was respected by many on the left, 93 or 95% certainty that Hillary Clinton would be elected. And then that person's name, by the way, gets mentioned in some of those videos you can watch of what happened on that night in November 2016 when the left began to realize, oh my goodness, Donald Trump might become the next president. He might win this thing. Wait a minute, what about all these 95% certainty? It was somebody at the Huffington Post that had said that. We live in a day where information is king. And so the gatekeepers who decide what information will pass through and what will not are really doing a major disservice to us. So when I went out and interviewed Stephen Andrew, I was so pleased with what he's doing, and I took my own wallet out and gave him $10 for the one and $10 for the other, and just said, Stephen, I think what you're doing is really the Lord's work, and I'm just doing this as a private citizen and as a Christian. I hope you succeed, because 98% censorship from Facebook, he's not alone. Everybody I talk with just about is complaining about this situation where their ideas are being prohibited and so forth, being shut down.
Another thing, though, to remember is that it's not just the fact that they're censoring people. It's the fact that the only time a conservative voice is allowed to have major media, the only time they're allowed in the door is if they're dressed like a clown. When they have somebody that they can either A, looks like they're just goofy and you can make fun of them, or B, well, we can distort them enough to make fun of them. Then they are allowed a voice only if it's something that they can pigeonhole, something they can take on. Just like when you see, and hopefully you don't have to watch this a lot, Bill Maher, okay? He'll have his program on, and he'll have 6 people there, and one of them will be conservative or somewhat conservative to the rest of the left. Why? Because they like it when they can gang up on somebody. Yeah. But they cannot take a respectful presentation of conservative ideas and values.
If I could address that on a personal note, when his program was on ABC TV, before it went on the HBO, I was actually that person on 4 different occasions. Somebody once asked, why do you do that when it's 4 or 5 against 1? And my comment was, well, first of all, when you're the one, you get to speak more often, at least than the other 3 panelists. But I was able to make Christian and conservative points that I thought were important to make in that context. But you're absolutely right. It is, they gang up on you. And I think things are worse now in terms of there's just a mean-spiritedness that has just kind of taken over the body politic, where people are saying things that are just cruel to each other. And you have to remember, we're made in the image of God. And I think Christians do know this and remember this. And therefore, even somebody like Bill Maher, who's totally lost, he is actually redeemable. The day could come that Jesus Christ changes him, just like he changed the Apostle Paul. We should really pray for that. In fact, I do pray for that he gets saved. I would agree with you. The bias in the media overall against anything Christian is real and palatable.
Jerry, how could we send $10 to Stephen Andrew for his work?
USA.life.
Is that on the website?
Yeah, that is his website, USA.life, USA.life. He has 2 websites, that and 1776.free.
Oh,
so
really?
While he's in the process of building all that up and working out all those details, that is a means in which you can track him and as he's kickstarting all this kind of stuff and building it up. So Here's a guy from Silicon Valley that does not share the values with 99.9% or whatever of those within Silicon Valley. It's interesting when the guy from Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, was actually at a Senate hearing. He was honest to say, look, Senator, let's be honest. These things are programmed by people out in Silicon Valley, and the values of people in Silicon Valley tend to be far left or something like that. And I thought, wow, that was good that he admitted it at least.
This Stephen Andrew, it said that he got up to 8 million viewers a month.
After it started being censored, all these people were trying to reach out to him, and every once in a while he'd get an email like, where are you? Where have you been? Yeah. And he said he was still pumping these things out. It's just that the people at Facebook were turning off the spigot. Ben Shapiro, whom we interviewed for the special, he made a very interesting point. Do I have a moment to explain this? He said there's a difference between platform and a publisher. A platform and a publisher. Now, Ben Shapiro, his outfit in the Los Angeles area, is called dailywire.com. Dailywire.com. It's a publisher. They're responsible for the content that they publish. In contrast, Facebook claims to be a neutral platform where others get to publish their own content. But in gearing their platform to suppress conservative content and then promote liberal content, they are acting as a publisher, determining content while claiming to be merely a platform. Ben Shapiro said, look, let's suppose I get sued or Daily Wire gets sued because of something we publish as a publisher. That lawsuit could not or should not include AT&T. They're the ones providing the platform, but they're a neutral platform provider. But me, as the publisher of dailywire.com, I would be liable for the things we write, and therefore we want to avoid any kind of slander. I think that's a brilliant insight. It just underscores the need for solution to this problem of the gatekeepers, because there's so much power that they have. Like monopolies, I think that John D. Rockefeller could only have dreamed of having one day.
Oh, power corrupts.
Well, do you think that the answer is USA.life or 1776.free?
I think that's certainly one answer. I appreciate what Stephen Andrew is doing. I refer people to him. We had him in our program and so forth talking about this whole problem and his own censorship experience.
Some of these people are suing. Was it Facebook that some of them are suing? Let's see.
Yeah, now that's related to using information from them. I know that there's a lawsuit from Mr. Prager, Dennis Prager, who we had in our program. Now, he is suing Google, which is the parent company of YouTube, and he's on our video explaining why he engaged in this lawsuit. One of the things he said in the program is the idea that suppose Delta Airlines were to say, okay, conservatives can't fly on our plane anymore. Well, he said that would be terrible, but at least there's other airlines. But there's only one Google. There's only one Facebook. There's only one YouTube. So I think these companies are getting so big that they may get to a point where there is some concern about violating monopoly laws and trusts and so forth. And you hate to see the government in any way interfere with content and so forth, but I think, again, this platform publisher idea from Ben Shapiro is so critical to understand the difference, and I appreciate that.